guys, it's Lindsay Adele, and I want to welcome you to this special presentation featuring humorist and keynote speaker Devin Henderson. Devin Henderson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you're a humorist and a keynote speaker. What exactly is a humorist, and what kind of keynote speaking do you do?
Those are good questions. Those are great questions. Well, yeah, so a humorist is like a comedian. You know, so we stand in front of crowds, we make jokes, all that. But a humorist is really somebody who kind of like breaks down comedy and talks about how to use laughter in your everyday life, you know, to like be healthier, to be more productive at work. So as a keynote speaker, I stand in front of crowds, and while I'm doing comedy, I talk about, you know, here's how you think more like a comedian. You look at things around you and you laugh at them, you make fun of them, you laugh at yourself. And this is a good way to cope with life and to just be less stressful at work. So does that answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
It did.
All right, cool. Yeah.
So tell me, where did you get your start in comedy at?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, I always hesitate whether to reveal this part or not because I started as a magician. That's like my big secret, you know. I'm trying to quit, you know. So people ask me what I do. I'm like, well, I'm a recovering magician and kind of gone comedian. So the magic thing for me happened first, and I started doing it professionally like 14 years ago. But I've been doing it like for 26 years as a hobby. I started when I was a kid. And another thing I'm ashamed to say is that I got inspired because of NKOTB. Familiar with that?
I am, but I don't know if the viewers are.
Okay, well, let's just tell the viewers now. Let's educate the viewers a little bit, okay? So it's New Kids on the Block. I wouldn't even bring it up, but they've kind of made a comeback, and they're doing tours now and with the Backstreet Boys, if you don't know who that is. So when they had these music videos when they were little, and Joey McIntyre I didn't have a crush on him, but my sister did. She like adored the guy. And on one of the videos, he did this thing where he's like, look at my hands, look at my hands. And this is all like backstage exclusive stuff, right? So he's like, nothing in my hands. And then he goes like this, and he pulls like those magic scarves out of his hand, you know? And I was just like, what's going on here? Right? I'm thinking like camera tricks. And then he takes the scarves, put them back into his hand, and they're gone. So I'm just flipping out. I'm like, okay, this is like the devil, right? Not that I want to be like the devil. I'm just thinking, This is the devil. But then eventually I saw other magicians live do the same trick, so I knew it wasn't a camera trick. So then I started like diving into magic books. I had my mom take me to the library, and we checked out a stack of books like this high from the library, and I went through every book, couldn't find the scarf trick.
Wow.
So I was like, upset. But the cool thing is, as I was going through the book, I was learning all these other cool things, like tricks with pencils and rubber bands and decks of cards. So I was kind of becoming a magician on accident, searching for this one trick that I didn't find until like months later. Somebody's mom told me how the trick was done, you know. His name was Justin. And I was like, Justin's mom has got it going on. And ironically, his mom's name is Stacy, like the song. I'm not even kidding, I'm not making this up. It's true. So I bought the scarf trick so then I could do it. And I was like in 5th, 6th grade at the time. So then I started doing talent shows. And it just grew from there. David Blaine came on the scene. So I know your question was, how did I get started in comedy? But here's the thing. I had to answer the magic question before the comedy thing because comedy, kind of like once I started performing professionally, after I went to K-State, started performing, I was adding humor and comedy to the magic, right? Because you got to be entertaining. You can't just make the scarves appear and disappear. You've got to be funny while you're doing it. And so then the magic started being funny. Well, then I started doing the keynote speaking and using magic as an illustration. And then eventually it was kind of like I started losing that love for magic. You know, people are like, how do you lose love? Because people still love magic. I don't even like to talk about magic. I don't like to watch magic. I've just lost it. I've just got burnt out. But it got replaced with stand-up comedy. It was kind of like my new love. So I started studying that. I didn't really start hitting it really hard until about 3 or 4 years ago because it was always just the magic was funny. But now it was like, I want to do away with the magic and just see how funny I can be. So then I started doing the comedy, and then that kind of became the focus of my message today, which is when life's hard, laugh harder, which is what I tell corporate America. And the comedy just kind of evolved from the magic.
All right. Well, I will say that you're hilarious because I've been sitting here cracking up this whole time.
Thanks, good.
So tell me, where did this sense of humor come from? Like, was it passed down, or did you just kind of grow on you?
Oh, yeah, the humor. I would say it came from so many places. My dad has a great sense of humor. My dad is a great storyteller. He's just awesome. He was the guy who at the dinner table could just captivate the whole room, make everybody laugh. He was really good at making himself laugh. Which, by the way, as a side note, people always think that's like a bad thing. Like, you crack yourself up. Like, it's like, man, if I can crack myself up, I'm the happiest guy in the world.
I think it's a great thing.
Yes, I don't care if I'm the only one laughing at my joke. I mean, unless I'm getting paid. If I'm the only one laughing at what I'm doing, hey, I'm happy. But he was good at that. So my dad, he is a Marine. Yeah. And so hoorah,
Right.
And you might know, I say is a Marine because once a Marine, always a
Marine.
terrible father. That's right. No, I'm just kidding. My dad loves that joke, and I love my dad. But yeah, he's a Marine. My dad is 16 years older than my mom. So that's something I like to share with my audiences. And people are like, whoa. They think it's a joke. It's not a joke. He's 16 years older, so I'm like, hoorah. Because who robbed the cradle? My dad. Yeah, my mom was her own flower girl. So what do you do? But my parents are great. My parents are awesome. My dad, my parents wanted 2 kids, and I was number 3. So my they just flat out told me later, they were like, dude, you were surprised. I was like, dude, so were you. I didn't want you yahoos. But my dad, if a Marine could have a sense of humor, I finally learned anybody can have a sense of humor, and I just kind of picked that whole thing up from my dad. My dad's the kind of guy who, if you're like, hey, Dad, can I borrow your chapstick? He's like, sure. Come get it, dude. Come on. That's my dad, right? And then he did this trick. Check it out. That's my dad. Here, give it a go.
I don't think I can do it.
You can do it. Okay. That's gross. You were going to touch it. You're cool. You were actually going to take that. That's gross. I don't want that either. But, yeah. So that's my dad. So that's, kind of where I got the sense of humor. But then, of course, to actually do stand-up comedy and for me to ditch the tricks, it took so much work and study and watching other comedians and a variety of comedians to figure out what's my comedic voice. Because you can't just like be a hack I can't just be like, well, I like Brian Regan, so I'm going to be Brian, or Jim Gaffigan, who are my 2 favorite. You've got to really, you can learn from those people, but you have to find your own voice. And so I never knew how much it was going to take to study this new art. While I already had the stage comfortability, so I did have that part going for me, but there's a science and an art to stand-up comedy that I'm still learning, but it's just made it fun. It's made it challenging for me.
All right, so we know that you've been studying and you kind of watch other comedians, but where do you get your material from? You might pull some from your dad, but...
Yeah, I talk about my parents a lot. Obviously, the 16-year difference helps. Really, and I think any comedian would tell you this, it just comes from observation. You just open your eyes, you look around you, there's so many funny things happening all the time. And so it's just about taking note of things that are weird, that are hard, that are scary, that are silly. You just take those and you write them down. You're like, that's quirky. And if people can relate to the quirkiness of that situation, but they've never quite put their finger on it, and you point it out and they're like, you're right, that is, we were talking earlier about, digging to the bottom of the cereal box, and getting that toy. And that constitutes what cereal you get. That's the kind of thing you can point out and then joke about that the audience is like, yeah, I used to shove my hand. Some of us adults, we still do. We're like digging in the box. But we talked about the worst is when you think the prize is in there and it turns out it's a mail order in prize. And you're like, no, that's the worst. But, I think one funny thing is how people name their kids, right? Because, right, I've got kids. It's funny. It's like, so I have 5 kids, and they're all girls. So really, that's my comedy right there. Half of my hour-long show is about my 5 daughters. Our youngest one's 3 months, and so we had to go through this naming process again. And by the time you get to your 5th kid, you're just like, you're getting the bottom of the barrel, kid. We've already used the names we like, so it's pretty much just like open the Bible and eeny, meeny, miny, Dorcas. Okay, you get Dorcas. And a lot of people do name their kids, Bible names, Bible words, like faith, hope. In fact, one time I met 2 girls, their names were Faith and Hope. So the comedian part of me went, where's love? Right? Because faith, hope, and love, they go together. And I'm like, well, that wouldn't be okay because you can't be a parent and name your kids faith, hope, and love because there'd be some like favoritism going on. Right? It'd be like, yeah, these are my kids. This one's faith. This is hope. But this one over here, the golden child, the greatest of these is love, favoritism. So you can't name her love. You got to like pick, it's got to be a different name. Like, hey, these are my girls, faith, hope, and debauchery. You know, so you got, and so the comedian me looks at these things and says, the faith and hope, what's funny about that, you know? I'm just going to go on and on here, yeah. But since, well, I'm onto the naming thing. One time, my friends had 2 kids. They had Haley and Jackson. Now, what sometimes people do is they take a normal name, they screw up the spelling, and then they brag about how creative they are. They're like, oh, look what we did, you know?
Yeah.
Like when they had Haley, they're like, oh, but we spelled Haley, Hayleigh, Haley. Ooh, I was like, ooh, that's dumb. Dumgh, dumb. But then they had Jackson. They're like, oh, but we spelled Jackson, Jaxson, Jackson. I'm like, why? Right? What's the point, man? You know, don't reinvent Jackson. Because for the rest of that poor Jackson's life, it's like, hey, Jackson, how do you spell your name again? Like a moron. Right? I mean, poor Jackson. So, but I have all girls, but if I ever have boys, I have ideas for what I'm going to name them. Like this is my boy. His name's Jim. Jim with a G, G-Y-M, Jim. I've got a lot of ideas. Harry, H-A-I-R-Y, Harry. I don't know. But there's probably people watching with kids named Jackson and Haley, right? And they're like, here's the deal. People watching this, if that's the case and you spelled Jackson and Haley like that, I'm not making fun of your kid's name, okay? I'm making fun of you. Big difference. Okay. Anyway, that's where my stuff comes from. You know, just observation. Any comedian would tell you that. So.
All right, well, I am having a great time right now.
Good,
But
me too.
I want to know, how do you tie in your comedy and keynote speaking from a ministry perspective?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet. No, you know, even back when I started doing the magic professionally 14 years ago, I had like a kid's gospel presentation that I did with the magic, and it was called Magic versus Miracles. So that's kind of how the ministry part of it started in terms of professional. And so I would like do tricks and ask the kids, are these magic or are these miracles? And then I'd talk about how they're just tricks, and I'd reveal a trick, and I'd talk about Jesus' miracles, and I would kind of demonstrate some. Like I would do the feeding of the 5,000, but it would be like little spongy fish that multiplied. I did water into wine, which was Kool-Aid. But they were baffled, right? So it was really cool. And then I tied it together with, gospel presentation at the end. So going back even further than that, when I was doing more David Blaine street magic type style stuff, my friends and I would walk through the mall, a couple of the Christian friends and I, and we would just like approach strangers, do tricks. I would do tricks for them, and that would be like our icebreaker. And then we would just like try to start up a spiritual conversation. And that was a cool way where it was like, just use it as an icebreaker, and sometimes it didn't, sometimes it was like forced or whatever. So we just kind of made it a point to just love on people and, be out there. So really it's always been something where God's like, this isn't just going to be a form of entertainment, not just your income. We're going to use this in awesome ways, So since I did those early shows of Magic versus Miracles for the kids, it's sort of evolved more into, I don't do typically just like kids, I do, corporate audiences. And when I'm doing churches, it's usually like a church-wide or, like a district event where they bring in mainly adults. Sometimes there's kids in the room. But I just do my act, I do my comedy, and then I just sort of have what I call a share time at the end where I just talk about where God's working right now. I talk about how God's given us the gift of laughter. We just have to tap into that gift. God wants us to have a good time. He wants us to have fun. So there's a time to cry, there's a time to laugh, but man, when it's time to laugh, don't hold back. Yeah. So it's cool. I mean, there's, God is just always revealing something to me about how this is what I have for you to have. This is my plan for you. You're going to use this for my glory. Yeah, I use it in a secular setting, and I always keep the comedy clean because I'm always representing Christ. Even if I'm in a place where I'm not supposed to talk about God, I still want Christ to shine through me. And then if they go to my website, they can learn more about who I really am. So I try to be respectful of those, more corporate audiences that I'm up there like, I'm going to come in and talk about leadership. And then it's like, no, Jesus was a great leader. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, back off on Jesus. Because you have to be PC, you have to respect it, right? So there's like, it's kind of interesting hitting both worlds because I'm a different content for in a church and in a business. So, it's one of the things I really struggle with too. I know you didn't ask me this, but you said in terms of ministry, it's comparison. I look at it like have you heard of Tim Hawkins?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael Jr., okay, like Ken Davis. There's some of these people in this world of Christian comedy who have just kind of risen to the top, and they're just great. Bob Smiley, Darren Streblo, or some other guys. I've actually gotten to know those guys, but there's Carrie Pomeroli out of Hollywood. These people have just risen to the top, and they're just known in this church circle. And I'm kind of like, why aren't I known as well as them? Why aren't I as good as them? Why don't I get paid as much as them? Why don't I do as good of audiences? And I just realized, God has a different plan for Devin Henderson than he does for Bob Smiley or Darren Streblo. He has something different for you. But I have to battle that every day, And the same is true for any magician or keynote speaker I've ever seen, is I've always played that comparison game. So I'm still maturing, trying to grow into really just being content with who God has made me, and that he's given me a specific ministry, but also that he's going to use me to reach people that those other people can't, because there's just not enough days in a year for those people to go hit all these. So God is using all of us for the greater good and for the kingdom. So it humbles me to think I'm just a small piece of that. And, I may never rise to the place that I dream of, but it's like, that's okay, because if God has me sort of down here, that's where I'm needed, and that's where I'm going to have the most joy, because I'm really, it's not about the fame and the money, or it shouldn't be. If I really focus on this is for God, that's where I'm going to have the most joy.
Yeah. I actually think that is a great message for our viewers in general, because the way social media is set up and everything, it is so easy to compare yourself to someone else's journey.
Started on social media, I know. Yeah. I mean, social media is great. I don't want to knock it, because it is good for businesses and everything. I know for me, I've definitely, like, when someone else has more Twitter followers or more Instagram followers, and the culture is constantly like, you need more followers or you're not going to be successful.
Right.
It's kind of like, chill out. Everything's going to be okay. You're still going to have a business, Have fun with it. Snapchat, share your pictures. I think that's totally cool. I just think that, like, too much of anything is a bad thing, right? And my wife and I go back on, we need to take the Facebook app off our phone again, because it's running my life. I just sit there at night and scroll through other people's vacation pictures, and I'm like, why am I doing this, So I've actually done some comedy and stuff about some of the social media and technology things. So I just think we have to, I think God wants us to be smart about how we use anything like that, It makes me think of a deck of cards. I used to bring a deck of cards into churches, and people are like, oh, the devils, but it's like, I'm not gambling with it. I'm not making money. We're not doing that. This is a different purpose. So anything can be used, for sin or for God's glory, for the most part. So, yeah.
Right,
I'll be quiet about social media.
All right, well, I see you brought your ukulele with you.
Are
you going to serenade us today?
Well, yeah, that's what I do. Yeah. No, I do. So I do some music in my act, parody songs. I used to do the guitar. Hey.
So you're a musician as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I actually started playing piano when I was like 5, and that was my main instrument. And then I got into jazz, studied classical in high school. I thought I was going to do something with music. Yeah. I was in drumline, Were you in band at all, Marcia?
I actually played the clarinet.
You did? Yeah. So the thing about drumline is all of high school, when you're in drumline, you think you're cooler than the rest of the band. And then about 2 years after you graduate, you realize that's not true at all, right? Because all band people are equally cool, of course. But so then my dad taught me guitar. So that's something else I learned from my dad. So I do these parody songs, like you see a lot of comedians do. Ray Stevens has got to be one of my favorites, comedy song guys. But he's old. This audience has never heard of Ray Stevens. But you got to YouTube Mississippi Squirrel Revival. Okay. Mississippi Squirrel Revival. That'll make your day. It's good. Even though it's old, it's a classic. It's still good. My kids love it. So. It was too hard to travel with the guitar. I just didn't like it. So I thought ukulele is just so much easier.
It's beautiful.
I love that color. Thank you. I know. I got it because it's so manly. My girls helped me pick it out. My girls also explained the bracelet. I've been getting a lot of comments on my bracelet. I'm telling you, this is as manly as it gets right here. My daughter put the blue bead on there just so people would know it's a boy's bracelet. Okay, so back off. Also, I should mention, I've got hair ties. I always have like hair ties on every finger because you got to be ready. Yeah. Like my kids are like, hey, ponytail. I'm like, no problem. Bam! Right? They're like, pigtails. Boom, boom, boom. They're like, oh, side braided ponytail like Elsa from Frozen. I'm like, go see mom. I don't do that one. All right. So I do, like I said, about half my act on my kids, because my kids, they're never quiet in a good way, but they say things and I write them down because it's gold. The other day, my daughter, she's 10 now, but Claire came up to me. She's like, hey, Dad, if you could see through things, she's talking about x-ray vision, right? So she's like, if you could see through things, then actually you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Wow.
I know. 10 years old. I was like, thank you, Master Yoda. I can't even see through your logic. That's amazing. So they blow my mind. So whenever they say these things, if it's cute, or if it's wise, or if it's blackmail worthy, I write it down, right? And I have some of it in my act, but then I've also got a lot of just verbatim things they've said over the years. And I put it in this little song called the Girl Talk Song, where I just repeat these. So this might be a good way to end. I've taken enough of your time. You're sick of me. I call it the Girl Talk Song, and this is for my daughters. So remember these. This might change your life. Okay.
All right.
It's been really fun, by the way. Thanks for
really
having me on.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. This song's only 40 minutes long, so yeah. Man, this poop is tough. Feels like I'm going number 8. A lot of them are about poop, by the way, as you could have guessed. What do you call it when you cross a spoon and a fork?
Nothing.
Most people think it's spork. Spook. Now you know. I never would have thought of that myself in a million years, but
No.
little Charlotte. Hey, Dad, can the lions at the zoo still have babies? Or have they all been notarized? Hey, Daddy, can I eat a graham crapper? I said I wasn't going to do that one, and then shit just creeps in there, and I couldn't stop myself. Oh, man, I almost dropped her when she said that. I was laughing so hard, but I didn't drop her. I dropped her, so she's fine. Hey, Grandma, you know how you say you try to keep your mouth shut, but you can't? Well, try harder. One time, I saw a squirrel giving another squirrel a piggyback ride up a tree. Which is a downside to homeschooling, I guess, now, right? We do, by the way. We homeschool them. We're crazy. Hey, Dad, how many times are we going to sing this worship song? Hasn't God gotten enough glory already? I thought Jesus' girlfriend laid him in the tomb. You can laugh. She was only 4. You're still going to heaven. It's okay. You can laugh at that. I'm just repeating what I hear, okay? That's it. Oh, boy. Oh. I'll leave you with this one. I know we got to cut, so here we go. Hey, Dad, can I have some money for the offering for VBS? We girls need to beat the boys. Because it's a competition and I want to win. Oh, and I also want to raise money for the thing. Like whatever they're doing. They really love God. They really do. They do.
Yeah.
There's much more, but I'll just leave it at that. So there you go.
Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes,
It was
thanks for
a
having
pleasure,
me.
and I had a great time.
Thank you. It was fun lying and making stuff up on the fly. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Awesome. And viewers, I want to thank you for tuning in to this special presentation. I'm Lindsay Adele, and we'll see you next time.